A powerful 6.8 magnitude earthquake struck Morocco Friday night, killing more than 600 people and damaging buildings in the historic city of Marrakesh in what the United States Geological Survey, USGS, said was the strongest tremor to hit that part of the North African nation in more than a century. The quake struck in Morocco's high Atlas mountain range shortly after 11 p.m. local time at the relatively shallow depth of 18.5 kilometers, 11.4 miles, USGS said, with the epicenter located about 72 kilometers, 44.7 miles, southwest of Marrakesh, a city of some 840,000 people, and a popular tourist destination. At least 632 people were killed, and 329 others were wounded, including 51 in critical condition, state-run TV Al Ula reported, citing Morocco's interior ministry. Many spent the night on the streets in multiple cities fearful of aftershocks, as a desperate mission to locate those trapped in the rubble got underway. Health authorities also called on people to donate blood to help victims. Most deaths occurred in mountain areas close to the epicenter that were hard to reach, authorities said, and rescue teams were having difficulty reaching the worst affected areas after roads were damaged, Al Ula reported. The Royal Moroccan Armed Forces warned that residents to pay close attention to follow-up tremors. We remind you of the need to exercise caution and take safety measures due to the risk of aftershocks, the military wrote on X, formerly known as Twitter. The USGS said Friday night's quake was unusually strong for that part of Morocco. Earthquakes of this size in the region are uncommon, but not unexpected. Since 1900, there have been no earthquakes M6, magnitude 6, and larger within 500 kilometers of this earthquake, and only 9 M5, magnitude 5, and larger earthquakes, USGS said. The U.S. body predicted that significant damage is likely and the disaster is potentially widespread, noting that many people in the area reside in structures that are highly vulnerable to earthquake shaking. Al Ula television on Saturday showed multiple buildings collapsed near the epicenter and reported that thousands of people had fled their homes after the country's National Institute of Geophysics warned of aftershocks. Most houses in the mountain village of Asni near the epicenter were damaged, Montaza Itri, a local resident, told Reuters. Our neighbors are under the rubble and people are working hard to rescue them using available means in the village, he said. Tremors were also felt further west near Taradant, where a resident said he had fled his home and there had been aftershocks following the initial quake, according to Reuters. The earth shook for about 20 seconds. Doors opened and shut by themselves as I rushed downstairs from the second floor, teacher Hamid Afkar told Reuters. Historic town damaged. In the old city of Marrakesh, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, some residents were injured as buildings and city walls were damaged and partially collapsed, according to CNN researcher Benjamin Brown, who is on the ground. Brown, who was at the rooftop of his hotel when the ground started shaking, told CNN Newsroom, with Michael Holmes, that it took a few seconds for everyone to realize what was going on. People initially remained calm as they made their way out of the narrow alleyways to find a safe place outdoors, many in their pajamas, according to Brown. It kicked in a couple of minutes later, screaming began. When the extent of the injuries became apparent, that's really when the panic kicked in, he said. I saw many people brought out of their homes in stretchers or wrapped in carpets, some of them with what appeared to be quite serious head injuries, with lots of blood. At least one ambulance had to turn away an injured woman, because it was already full with injured people, Brown said. Some parts of the historic red walls that surround Marrakesh's old city center, which were first laid out in the early 12th century, also crumbled, he added. Videos and photos show open spaces in the city, including squares and traffic roundabouts, filled with people, some setting up makeshift beds to stay the night. Some houses in the city have collapsed and people were moving debris by hand while they waited for heavy equipment, local resident Idwaziz Hassan told Reuters news agency. Another Marrakesh resident, Brahim Himi, told Reuters he saw ambulances coming out of the old town, and that many building facades were damaged. He said people were frightened, and were staying outside in case of another quake. The chandelier fell from the ceiling and I ran out. I'm still in the road with my children and we're scared, Huda Hafsi, a 43-year-old Marrakesh resident, told Reuters. A former imperial city with a history that dates back nearly 1,000 years, Marrakesh is tightly packed with medieval-era palaces, mosques, gardens and bustling markets. Its historic quarters are surrounded by red earth walls and filled with buildings constructed in red sandstone, which gave the city its nickname the Red City. Before the COVID pandemic, Marrakesh drew nearly 3 million tourists in 2019. In addition to its rich culture and history, Marrakesh is also Morocco's fourth largest city and a major economic center. Shaking was also felt in the capital Rabat, some 350 kilometers north of the high Atlas Mountains, Reuters said, citing eyewitnesses. The number of casualties is expected to rise still further after the earthquake, which is said to have hit a third of the country. Reports say there are big difficulties in reaching remote villages in the Atlas Mountains which were hit severely by the earthquake. It may take days before rescuers are able to reach those villages, which are mainly made up of old buildings. Even people in the Canary Islands off the coast of Morocco, and in Algeria, its eastern neighbor, say they felt the quake. We have seen scenes of shocked people fleeing their homes and escaping onto the streets of Marrakesh. And we have heard that the ancient walls of the city have been affected by the quake too. 1. More than 600 people have died after a powerful earthquake struck central Morocco, according to the country's interior ministry. 2. The quake, measuring magnitude 6.8, sent people rushing into the streets in Marrakesh and other cities. 3. Many of the deaths were said to be in hard-to-reach mountain areas, and at least 153 people were injured. 4. It struck just after 2300 hours local time, at a relatively shallow depth 71 kilometers, 44 miles southwest of Marrakesh, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. 5. Unverified video clips on X, formerly Twitter, showed